The wind dragged itself across the plain like a tired animal, carrying dust, old grass, and the faint smell of rain that never quite came. The ranch sat alone against the horizon, a low sprawl of weathered wood and leaning fences, surrounded by miles of empty land that swallowed sound and secrets alike. Eli Calder had built this place with his hands, board by board, nail by nail. After the war chewed him up and spat him west. The land didn't ask questions. It only demanded blood, sweat, and time. Eli gave it all three. He was mending a fence when he heard the horse. Not the lazy clop of a ranch hand riding back late. Not the sharp rhythm of a man in a hurry. This was uneven, dragging, like the rider was fighting to stay upright. Eli straightened slowly, hand resting near the worn grip of the revolver at his hip. Out here, surprises usually came with teeth. The rider emerged from the dust like a ghost stitched together wrong. A woman slumped forward in the saddle, one arm wrapped tight around her middle, the other barely holding the reins. Her hat was gone. Her hair, dark, tangled, heavy with dust, clung to her face and neck. The horse staggered, sides lathered white with foam. "Easy," Eli muttered, already moving. The horse collapsed before it reached the gate. The woman slid off with it, hitting the ground hard enough to knock the breath clean out of her. Eli reached her in seconds, dropping to his knees. She tried to push herself up, failed and laughed, a broken, breathless sound that didn't belong in a place like this. "Don't," she said, voice rough as gravel. "Don't look yet." That stopped him. Eli had seen men die screaming. He'd seen women walk miles with bullets in them and never complain. Fear usually announced itself clearly. This was different. This was dread, quiet and controlled, like she was afraid of what would happen once he truly saw her. "Ma'am," he said carefully, "you're bleeding." "I know," she swallowed. "It's torn. Remove it for me." The words hung between them, strange and heavy. Torn could mean cloth, could mean flesh, could mean something else entirely. Eli reached for her shoulder, and she flinched so hard she nearly screamed. "Not yet," she whispered. "Please." Eli froze. He hadn't noticed it at first, because his eyes were trained on blood, on breath, on the signs of life clinging by a thread. But now he saw it. The garment wrapped around her torso, what looked like a thick, dark coat, was wrong. Too tight, too uneven. The edges didn't fall like fabric should. They clung. "What in God's name?" he murmured. She turned her face away. "You're a rancher, right?" "Yes." "You still have a soul." He didn't answer that. "I need help," she said. "And if you scream or reach for that gun, I'll shoot you before I bleed out." Her hand moved just enough for him to see the revolver tucked beneath the strange wrap, pressed awkwardly against her ribs. Eli leaned back on his heels, slow and deliberate. "All right," he said. "All right. We'll do this careful." The plains seemed to hold their breath. He helped her to her feet, half carrying her toward the house. Every step left a dark mark in the dust. She moved like someone who'd learned to endure pain rather than fight it. Inside, the house was cool and dim, the smell of coffee grounds and oiled leather hanging in the air. He laid her gently on the table, ignoring the way his hands shook. "Tell me your name," he said. "Clara," she replied. "Just Clara." He nodded. "Eli?" She gave a faint smile that didn't reach her eyes. Figures. He reached for his knife, placed it on the table where she could see it. "I'm going to cut it away," he said, slow. Her jaw tightened. "When you do, don't stop." The blade slid under the edge of the wrap. It wasn't cloth. Eli's breath caught in his throat. The material pulled away with a wet resistance, like peeling bark from a living tree. Beneath it, skin. Pale, raw, and not entirely human. Something darker ran beneath the surface, branching like veins, but too thick, too deliberate. Clara's scream split the room. Eli staggered back, hitting the wall hard enough to rattle the shelves. His mind scrambled for sense, for reason, for anything that fit the world he knew. This wasn't possible. This wasn't real. The war had shown him horrors, but they'd all worn human faces. She gasped, sweat pouring down her temples. "Now you see why I told you not to look too soon." "What are you?" he whispered. Her eyes met his. They were steady, sad, afraid. "I'm hunted," she said, "and if they find me here, they won't stop with me." As if summoned by the words, distant gunshots echoed across the plain. Eli moved to the window, peering out through the dust-hazed glass. Riders, 5 of them, spreading wide. Moving with purpose, Clara pushed herself upright despite the pain. "You need to choose," she said. "Right now." "Choose what?" "Whether you're the kind of man who closes his door, or the kind they bury on that hill." The riders were closer now. Eli felt the old weight settle into his chest, the familiar pull of violence, of consequence. He looked at Clara, at the impossible wound, at the blood soaking into his table. He reached for his rifle. "Then we make our stand," he said. Outside, the dust rose higher, and the day leaned toward blood. The riders stopped just beyond rifle range, their horses restless, hooves grinding the dirt, as if the land itself didn't want them standing there. Eli counted them again to be sure. 5 men, all armed, all sitting easy in their saddles. Like this wasn't the first time they'd come to collect something that didn't want to be found. Clara watched them through the window, her face pale but composed. Pain had sharpened her, not softened her. Whatever lived beneath her skin, it wasn't panic. "They won't rush," she said quietly. "They like to talk first." Eli chambered around and set the rifle against the window frame. "Who are they?" "Men who believe God made the world incomplete," she replied, "and that it's their duty to finish it." That answer sat wrong. Eli had heard sermons like that before, men justifying cruelty with scripture, turning greed into righteousness. He'd buried too many graves to believe holiness ever rode with a gun. One of the riders nudged his horse forward. He raised a hand in greeting, slow and deliberate. His coat was black despite the heat, his hat brim pulled low enough to hide his eyes. When he spoke, his voice carried easily across the open ground. "Evening, Mr. Calder," the man called. Eli stiffened. He hadn't given his name. "We're just passing through," the rider continued. "But we seem to have misplaced something. Thought we might ask neighborly." Eli didn't answer. The rider smiled thinly. "A woman hurt, dangerous to herself, to others. You seen anyone like that today?" Clara leaned closer to Eli, her breath shallow. "That's Marcus Hale," she whispered. "If he steps off that horse, it means he's done pretending." Eli raised the rifle. "No one's here but me and my land." Hale nodded, as if he'd expected that. "Funny thing about land," he said. "It remembers who bleeds on it." Another rider shifted, hand drifting toward his holster. The standoff tightened, stretched thin as wire. Eli felt the weight of the choice pressing on him harder now. This wasn't just about defending a stranger. This was about defying men who didn't leave witnesses. The first shot came from the far right. Glass exploded inward. Eli fired back on instinct, the rifle bucking against his shoulder. One rider pitched sideways, hitting the ground hard. Horses screamed. Gunfire tore the quiet apart. Eli dragged Clara down as bullets chewed through the wall. Wood splintered. Plates shattered. The house shook like it was trying to pull free of its foundations. "A basement!" Eli shouted. "There is no basement!" Clara yelled back. "Then crawl." They moved low, Eli firing when he could, buying seconds. Clara clutched her side. Blood seeping through the torn edge of her skin, human skin now, though it pulsed faintly, as if something beneath it listened. A rider dismounted and rushed the porch. Eli dropped him with a clean shot. Hale stayed mounted, calm as ever, directing his men with small gestures. He wasn't here for a gunfight. He was here for her. Smoke filled the house. Eli's ears rang. He slammed the door to the back room and braced it. "With a table." "Why you?" he demanded between breaths. "What are you?" Clara slid down the wall, eyes squeezed shut. "I didn't ask to be made," she said. "And I didn't consent to be owned." Eli stared at her. Made by who? She met his gaze. "Men like him." The firing slowed. Hale's voice drifted through the smoke. You're prolonging the inevitable, Rancher. She's not a woman. She's a weapon that learned how to bleed. Eli felt something break loose inside him then, something old and dangerous. He'd fought for men who talked like that once, watched them excuse every atrocity with pretty words. He reloaded. When the back door blew inward, the fight turned brutal and close. Eli moved like he used to, no thought, just motion. A knife, a body falling, blood on his hands again. He didn't stop until the room was quiet, except for Clara's breathing. 3 riders lay dead. One crawled away into the dust, wounded and screaming. Only Hale remained. He dismounted at last, slow, respectful. "You've made a powerful enemy today," he said, "and a foolish promise." Eli stepped onto the porch, rifle steady. "You're not taking her?" Hale smiled, eyes finally visible, cold, certain. "I don't have to. She won't survive the change." Clara cried out behind him. Eli turned just in time to see her body convulse, the skin along her side shifting, tearing wider, revealing something luminous beneath, something alive and wrong and beautiful all at once. Hale tipped his hat. "See you soon, Mr. Calder." He mounted and rode away as the sun dipped low, leaving Eli standing between the dead and the impossible woman he'd chosen to protect. Eli knelt beside Clara, gripping her hand as she screamed through the transformation. Whatever tomorrow held, the ranch would never be just land again. It was a battleground now,